Well, thank you all for coming out, I guess, and thank you, Swamp, for having us. As Michelle said, my company is Rainmaker Films. I live here in Houston. I spend a fair amount of time in Austin, but it just goes to show that you can live in Texas and be in the film business. You don't have to be in LA. So that's my plug for Texas. But it is important to know and remember that a film is still a story. So, you know, the most important factor is how good is the story? How good a film is it going to be? Is it going to be engaging? Those factors will always be there and are most critical to selecting a film, writing a script, whatever your field is.
So if someone wanted to hire you, couldn't license a song they wanted to hire or get or whatever, who ends up owning your work?
Depends.
Okay.
Basically, in the quote real world, if you've got a full budget, you know, you would own it. You would own the master recording, and if you were the publisher.
By you mean the film company that paid for it?
Yes, the film company that paid for it.
It's like a work for hire.
It is a work for hire, and typically, the publisher is you are your designee, and I own my writer's share, but you control it. That being said, I've yet to work on an independent film that had that business mechanism.
There is not enough diversity behind the camera. Of the theatrically released films of last year, the thousands upon thousands of films that are released around the world, less than 2% of those films were directed by women of color. That is problematic because we make up more than 2% of the population. So and we serve an industry that, look at this room and how diverse we are, when 70% or more of the work that is created in an industry is made by white males that serves a population that is as diverse as the world that we live in. It is fundamentally a very serious problem.
With my documentary, there's really nothing I've been able to compare or contrast it to since, really. I mean, it was a fundamentally amazing experience, bizarre experience, emotional experience, because it was so personal. It was pre-YouTube age. It was before social networking. It was before it was okay to be in public or stuff, anything like that. So it was very, you know, I was very off my equilibrium, you know, from making it. But and I was able to, you know, like I said before, make a handful of films afterwards, although they weren't films that I felt like I could necessarily endorse all the way for different reasons. But, you know, in terms of like what the catalyst was of really, in a nutshell, of how the film came about initially it was something that I had been working on my iMac, on iMovie 1, on like the iMac, the old iMac. And this was, you know, nobody was really making movies in their apartments the way they are now, and nobody was really, you know, there were no iPhones, nobody was really doing that. So I suppose, you know, it was really by happenstance. It was sort of being in the right place at the right time, wanting to be a filmmaker all of my life.
I once heard Bob Dylan say that his religion was songs, and my religion is story structure. I believe that that story structure is essentially the structure of the way the mind tells its story about itself. Yeah. And that through studying things like the hero's journey, you really learn a lot about yourself. And when I teach screenwriting, the classes end up being almost as much psychotherapy as anything else. At the very least, if they don't get a script out of it, they get some really good therapy, you know.
That's right. Well,
Did I answer your question?
Yes, I always consider screenwriting. I mean, as a screenwriter myself, it is a very therapeutic process. Absolutely.
Especially if you're writing about yourself.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
A lot of times these companies or an agency knows that they have a project, they have a client, but they're talking to 3 different companies or 3 different directors to find out what their vision is for the project. And even if they bring you a script for a commercial, they're looking for you to, what they call, plus their board. They want you to interpret that and tell them that they don't want someone just to do a straight execution. Well, some people do, but to do a straight execution of what they've got. How can you make it better? So you're already giving away some of your intellectual capital. You're already thinking about it. You're already, in a lot of instances, putting together a little treatment of how you would handle this just to get the project. And you don't have any money up front. And maybe you don't even know what the project has in the way of funding for it. Sometimes you know exactly what it is and you have to reverse engineer it. We've got $50,000 for this job, you know, how do we put the most that we can up on the screen? Or we want this job, how much does it cost? And you say, well, what is it? And they say, well, we don't know, but we've talked to 3 other people and they could do it for this. And you go, well, you know, there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. And so I think the best advice I could give is always to go at it from the attitude of how do we, in addition to feeding ourselves, how do we put the most of that project, of the budget for that project on the screen?
It's all about us. It's all about the work we do. It's all about the communities we create. It's all about the collaborations we participate in. And with Texas, and with Austin, but with Texas, we get to see this extraordinary body of regional films over the last 25 years that are kind of mind-blowing. And you know, and then you have Kat Candler and Jeff Nichols and the Duplass brothers and the Zellner brothers. And whenever I start on this, I screw it up because there's too many names of people who are making wonderful films. You know, it's not just Linklater, and it's not just Frederick. Now, Rick, at the point where he came out with the Noon Boys, his biggest failure, and decided, like, what was he going to do next? So first he made Waking Life, an animated film on philosophy, and then he made Tape, a 90-minute real-time film with 3 people in a hotel room, both of which, by the way, made money. But I mean, but like that wasn't peculiar enough. Said to our friend John Sloss, his lawyer, goes, I want to shoot a film over 12 years. And I'm making this documentary, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have this dramatic, or we're going to have this dramatic arc. He comes up with this 12-year project, and I'm sure, like everybody must have gone, oh, you're insane. So Sloss says, no, he told me that, I thought it was really good. We talked to Jonathan Searing at IFC, he said, no, Sloss and Rick came to me in Venice, the Venice Film Festival, so we had this idea to make a film over 12 years, and we thought, I think I can sell that, maybe we can do that. And then I talked to Ethan, and Ethan said, no, Rick called me up in the middle of the phone call, said, if you want me, I'm in. And Patricia Arquette intervened, and she said, he was pitching an idea, and she said, well, if you're asking me, I would love to do this. And I kept looking for somebody to say, 12 years is insane. You know, people are going to die, nobody's going to finish the project, and everybody's going, yes. And Rick is so self-possessed and so sure of himself. He did a film over 12 years, and it turned out to be a masterpiece, an extraordinary film. And I was talking to Ethan, and I said, I heard like after 6 years, Sloss saw it and said, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but it's okay. But after like 8 years, Ethan saw Cut, and he said, and went to everybody and said, no, you don't get it, this is special, this is a masterpiece. And Ethan said, oh, absolutely. And that's what it's all about. It's that moment when you get to watch an amazing film, and then in some way or another, your friends made it, or you were involved, or you're just watching with friends. It's been an incredible adventure, and we're all part of it, and the best is yet to come.